We are back with more NBA coverage to get straight into it. The Trailblazers would sell their franchise for a valuation of $4.25 billion over to Tom Dundon and his accompanying group. Now, this was something that was in the works for quite some time. There was obviously a report in May stating that they would officially go through with the process, but for the very start of it, you have to go all the way back to 2018, as Paul Allen at the time was alive and well, while having a stake in ownership of the Blazers, the Seattle Seahawks, and also the Seattle Sounders at the time. We know that he did unfortunately pass away in 2018, and as a result, his trust or estate took possession of all of those properties, at least the specific amount that he invested in them at the time, along with his sister Jody Allen, representing the entire group. And they would still keep things pushing in all of those respective areas, but their tenure with the Blazers ended up coming with a little twist that I didn't even know about. As this quote from this ESPN article states, Allen died from cancer in 2018, and his will called for the franchise to be sold at some point. So he even figured prior to passing away that their ownership of the team wasn't going to last for that much longer. And I guess over the course of the years following this, the performance has obviously been shaky with the team, but more importantly, they've been trying to find suitors to take possession of the franchise behind the scenes, and I guess up until this point, they hadn't really garnered much traction. So they figured you could find the highest bidder to take ownership, and by that point, you have successfully done what you needed to do here. In terms of their ability to stay in Portland upon this change in ownership, that would really be determined by the city and I guess by the fan base. The Allen estate wasn't really going to control that aspect of it. And it seems like the team's viability in Portland isn't really up for question at all. You know, a lot of the articles that I've seen have mentioned that Tom Dundon does intend on keeping the team in Portland. So that's good, because you got to think about it like this. And you could say this about most NBA fan bases, most fan bases in any sport. But they've got some of the more loyal fans in the NBA. Whether it be through the glory days with Clyde Drexler, the Aldridge and Roy duo, or obviously the Damian Lillard tenure in the early to late 2010s and early 2020s. Even when they reached the lowest points of all of those eras in between, you still have fans showing out, coming to the games through thick and thin. And they're riding or dying for this team. It's as simple as that. So to just take away that franchise in a city that, again, they do have a soccer team of their own, but mostly Portland, outside of basketball and soccer, isn't really regarded as a sports town all that much. And the Blazers are obviously a big draw to that community. So there could be a number of implications that go along with taking them out completely. Not just from the social aspect of removing all of the memories that those fans could make or have made in the past, but also from a financial standpoint of the city's economy. I mean, entertainment there, whatever you can get out of that aspect of it, is going to contribute a ton to their structure over there. So it was important to ensure that they could remain a part of that city. And at least for the time being, they're going to. In fact, they are very, willing to take just about any offer imaginable for the sole purpose of keeping the team there. Because when I saw this quote from this same ESPN article, I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't really understand if this was a good thing or a bad thing. But you be the judge of this. As this quote states, in 2024, the Blazers sold their home arena, the Moda Center, to the city of Portland for $1, and the land under the arena for $7 million. End quote. Now again, the sale of that must have been the first step, but you're telling me that you're giving the ownership of an entire stadium, an entire arena, over to the common citizens of the city for a single dollar. And I had to keep on double checking, triple checking with other sources because I thought this shit was a typo. I'm not gonna lie to you. $1 for something that took years of work in. You don't even want to imagine how much money it probably costed to keep up all of the renovations in there. All of the different construction that took place inside the building to create some of the, I guess, different functions in there. It's like, and you are willing to take that seemingly low value and offer it over to the city, and they don't reject that at all? If that doesn't show you how dedicated they truly are to having a basketball team in Portland, I don't know what to tell you. Because in most other cases, in damn near every other case, you're not going to be able to get away with selling something for $1. And it's not even like the Moda Center was this run-down, cheap-ass arena either. Like, it's still in pretty good condition at this point. I don't really hear a lot of complaints about, just bad infrastructure relating to that. I don't hear anything about that at all. You don't really hear negative reviews about how they run things down there. And it feels like such a low price would tie in with something that is just incredibly busted up, damaged to the fullest extent, and just completely neglected and abandoned. But this is in fine condition. It's the city, the common citizens that have full control over what exactly they choose to do with it. And all for just a single dollar. Like that is pretty damn cool from that perspective. But again, upon first glance, I'm like, damn, you're selling it for that cheap? Like, there's got to be something that I don't know. And then also $7 million to, I suppose, handle the surrounding area of the arena. So that was the first major step in getting this done. And then, as I mentioned, you have them formally announcing they would pursue a suitor, I guess, later on in this year. They found it in Dundon. Now, here's the thing about Tom Dundon. He actually is he has full ownership, a majority ownership stake in the Carolina Hurricanes of the NHL. And this is where I probably focus in on how this could impact performance. Let's just put it like this. Now, hockey and basketball are two different sports, obviously. But if his tenure with the Hurricanes, since he assumed the role in 2018, suggests anything, it ties in directly with where the Blazers appear to be headed. Because since 2018, when he took full possession of the ownership role there in Carolina, they have been a consistent playoff contender. They have consistently made conference finals appearances. Shit, they've done it 3 times in his tenure. The very first season in 2018-19 saw them go 46-29 while finishing 4th in the division and somehow making a run all the way to the conference finals. They also did it last year with a 2nd place finish. And as of last season, they have had 5 straight top 2 finishes in their division while making the playoffs at every time. In fact, they have advanced to the 2nd round in all but one of these seasons, except for 2019 when they lost in the 1st round of the NHL playoffs. So they have been on a consistent rise as a playoff contender, maybe even a Stanley Cup contender. Now, it could be a case where you won't necessarily find that success translating whatsoever, but at the same time, the Blazers are also coming off a season where they, despite not really having the greatest roster assembled, they still managed to finish right near the play-in, going toe-to-toe with teams like the Suns for that spot. And if Dundon was as hands-on as he had to be in order to see something like that go to fruition, I mean, think about this. They also had 3 straight 50-win seasons and had 47 wins last year. If the Blazers could see even a glimpse of that kind of progression, they're going to be a dangerous team in the West. A Western Conference that is very deep. It will be difficult to make the right moves and place the right things in motion to get this team going. But it doesn't seem to be an impossible task for Tom Dundon if you can do this in hockey and just have them consistently contending for a shot at the Stanley Cup title. So, again, I wasn't all too aware of him prior to that sale, but if you're looking at that track record and you're seeing how successful that team has been, who's to say that if he handles things accordingly, the Trailblazers can't undergo the same kind of progression and build back the value of the organization while maybe even becoming more valuable over time, depending on how they perform, not just the team, but also the fan base when it comes to, I guess, the different purchases that go into all of the promotions and ticket sales, things like that. Attendance rates, you're obviously going to be looking at that in a situation like this. And they already had leases in place and stuff. So in time, Dundon, if the team is actually good and is becoming increasingly more valuable, he can have a good amount of leverage in, potential talks down the line with the city when it comes to renewing leases for the arena and, I guess, other accommodations surrounding the area. But from that perspective, it could be a really good sale for them. Also, it's important to note that the Seahawks nor the Sounders are being sold at all. Like, those are intact. They did not state that they had any plans to move either of those 2 franchises. The sale was mainly just focused on what the Blazers were trying to do at the time. And they've gone through with it. We'll see how things transpire over the next few seasons. But again, if Dundon had that kind of role in the success of the Hurricanes, because when looking at this even further, I mean, they were, albeit a decent team, but they were consistently finishing near the bottom of their division. They consistently had mediocre records, and they hadn't even made any playoff appearance since 2008. They still have not, even with all this recent success, won a Stanley Cup final since the 05-06 season, it looks like. But that's fine. They are consistently in the running. The Blazers are looking to do the same thing. And they've had a longer drought in between NBA championship wins. But maybe they can inch even closer with Dundon at the helm. And I think that's what they're banking on. So it'll like that should be something to watch. The Bucks would sign Amir Coffey on a 1-year contract. And I would essentially look at it like this. He is a little bit younger than Taurean Prince, but he's essentially going to be an additional player, I should say, that fills the same kind of role. Like his defense, again, nowhere near what you would want for a traditional 3-and-D wing, but he's no scrub at it. Like, he can get you a good amount of stops with his defensive technique and also just his energy off the bench. He also serves a pretty fine role offensively. Now, granted, there were a few more opportunities to go around last season as a Clipper for him, seeing as multiple players just missed a significant amount of time, like Kawhi Leonard, obviously. But last season saw him average a career high in points per game with 9.7, while also shooting 40.9% from 3, which would be his second highest mark in his career after his 41.1% shooting rate in 2020. And let me just say this right now. If you're getting a guy off the bench who can give you solid defense and 40.9% shooting from the three-point line, while also being a career 38.4% three-point shooter, that is a weapon that you would very much like to have. They're not expecting too much out of Amir Coffey, obviously, by giving him just a 1-year deal like this. But you're just trying to pick back up the pieces of this team, quite frankly. You have had to do so much work over the course of this offseason to strip down your roster as it was and completely not rebuild it, but just retool it around Giannis. That's essentially what moves like this are going to be. You're not going to be able to, with the wave and stretch deal for Lillard and the contracts for both Turner and Giannis right now, you're not going to be able to go out and get big names. But the key to having a team led by Giannis is to have a load of shooters around him. Turner can obviously space the floor. AJ Green can obviously space the floor. Taurean Prince can obviously space the floor. Amir Coffey is going to be able to fill that role very well. No question about it. Again, it's not something that'll move the needle for them, I think. And I don't think you could expect that to be the case just by adding Amir Coffey in. Like, that would be pretty delusional. But again, that is the game plan. Now, again, they gotta have players who can facilitate. So, I mean, you have Kevin Porter Jr. Maybe you're looking for him to be your playmaker. Ryan Rollins could probably do that off the bench. And Mark Sears is honestly, again, a very good option from undrafted free agency. The fact that they got him is honestly a pretty good thing. Now that you moved on from Damian Lillard, I don't know what exactly he would really be able to do this season. I don't know if they'd be willing to play him a ton, but I would actually like the Bucks to give him a chance as well. Nonetheless, a lot of new faces are there, and you're going to have to try to completely retool your offense, because whatever the hell happened last year, it just didn't work. And Coffey, although maybe this could be in a lesser extent, is going to serve as one of those key pieces in making this Bucks team a well-versed offense and a respectable enough defense to last in the East and hopefully propel the Bucks to championship contention once more, so that Giannis doesn't have another wasted year and also continues to, I guess, voice displeasure with the organization. Again, there's been no update on him whatsoever. But the longer that they have to just stand by and wait for him to be committal, it is certainly not a good feeling for them. They are doing a hell of a lot within the confines of the second apron and the salary cap to fill out this roster around him. They're trying to make sure that he's the focus. And they're trying to reiterate the fact through all of these moves that he is the franchise. Yet he still hasn't said a thing. I don't think that getting Amir Coffey would have him speak up about it. But, man, it's like, at some point, they gonna have to say something. Because the NBA season is getting closer and closer and closer by the day. So that's not something that you would like to keep on waiting around for if you're in the Bucks' shoes. The Lakers are actually going to unveil a statue of former head coach Pat Riley next year. And honestly, something like this could have probably been done already. He is royalty in Los Angeles, and especially has become royalty in the NBA over the course of the past couple decades. People do forget that Pat Riley was actually a player and did spend time with the Lakers in his playing career, actually winning a championship with them. But obviously, he is more known as a coach and as an executive. So, what better way to stamp yourself, your name, in a part of basketball history by being one of the more important figures of the Showtime Lakers. We know what they've done. They were consistent in that 80s decade, winning 5 championships, making a number of finals appearances. Pat Riley, during his 9 years there, as multiple articles also state, he was responsible for 4 of those title wins and also 7 finals appearances during that decade alone. They were a completely dominant team. And honestly, with the players that you had, maybe you could sit back and say that it wasn't going to be hard. The Magic Johnsons, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars, the James Worthys, the Kurt Rambises, the Michael Coopers, and so on and so forth. Like, they had names up and down the pike on that team. There's no question about it. Even if you want to say that they were stacked, though, You gotta have a voice in that locker room who can get all those guys to gel together as a unit and continue to play winning basketball, especially if you're trying to become as dynastic as they were during that time. And that is where you should give Pat Riley a ton of credit for being able to rise to the occasion and be that beacon for the team to rally around. Simply put, not to mention all of the work he's done elsewhere, but specifically for his tenure with the Lakers, to have all that go down in 9 seasons. And when I say that he was truly dominant with this squad, there's no other way to put this. As this Bleacher Report article states, the Lakers were dominant throughout Riley's tenure with the organization, owning a 533-194 record to go along with a 102-47 mark in the playoffs. And they won at least 50 games in all 9 of his years. It just parlays right back into the nickname. They weren't just beating teams with Pat Riley being there. They were completely dog-walking them in the most entertaining of ways, and yet, even with all of that, even with being able to have an offense that provided the players, and especially Magic Johnson with his passing ability, to just completely shine and maximize their potential with the freedom implemented in that system, they were still sound enough to just consistently shoot through the competition and win everything multiple times. That is truly impressive work. So to do all that in just 9 seasons with the team, prior to moving on to other stops with the Knicks, and then obviously taking over for the Heat, this should have happened a long time ago. Yeah, Pat Riley has had his shit. We covered it last season when he was talking about Jimmy Butler and that whole debacle. We covered that. He's had his shit. Don't get me wrong. But as a Laker, his reputation there is virtually appreciated. And they're just extending that towards him with, I guess, a physical form of praise here. Because it's not an easy feat for any person anywhere to earn a statue with an organization, especially for the Lakers. When you look at all the names that have now gotten a statue with them, they have all served the utmost importance through their play, through their coaching prowess, whatever side of the coin you're on. They were that valuable to the team. And that is just undisputed with Pat Riley. Because as this quote states right here, he'll become the 8th Laker to be honored with a statue, joining Elgin Baylor, Kobe Bryant, Chick Hearn, Shaquille O'Neal, Jerry West, Abdul-Jabbar, and Magic Johnson. Basketball royalty at its finest. And even if, again, as a player, he was a little less known, that's obvious, but it takes a tactical mind to be able to assemble a team like that and lead them to victory in that way, then get a Knicks franchise that was trying to break through for years to the NBA Finals. Then take the Heat and make them into a main attraction in the NBA, while also being able to capture a few championships with them. And while he's established all of these different dynasties, you can't say that teams haven't been pissed off about it. Especially when it comes to the Celtics. I mean, literally. Yeah, the Celtics had the Heat in LeBron's number for a while, honestly, before losing to him in the conference semifinals en route to their first championship appearance as the Heatles, I should say. But it goes even deeper than that when you involve Pat Riley, because as this same Bleacher Report article stated, he actually would win 2 of those 4 NBA Finals against the Celtics. There may not have been one team who has been affected worse by Pat Riley's success than Boston. And I don't think they let him hear the end of it. Even after he's moved on and gone on to do all of these great things elsewhere. To the point where I guess the Lakers are just going to try to rub it in their face. Because as this article from Sports Illustrated states, the ceremony to unveil the statue will take place on February 22nd, hours before Los Angeles hosts the Boston Celtics. That is right. All of this is going to be taking place before one of the better known rivalries in NBA history takes place. They've consistently been battling each other for supremacy when it comes to holding the most championships in league history. And obviously, the Lakers are right there, nipping at the heels of the Celtics at this point. They are neck and neck. And who's to say that if the Celtics were able to steal those 2 back from them, because they did also win a couple against them of their own. I mean, we're talking about multiple finals in a row where the Celts and the Lakers faced off against each other. So they got some of their get back then. But if they were able to steal even more from them, the margin would be a lot greater between the 2 teams than it is right now. So I can imagine what some of the Celtics fans are going to do. You know, some of the players even. They'll probably joke around and give them a few jabs here and there. It's probably all in good fun for them. But I know that some of these fans will probably take it seriously. What's stopping a few of them from just showing up to the game early and watching it play out just to try and, talk shit to Pat Riley? That's one thing you gotta understand about Pat Riley, too. There have been multiple people who've tried to trash talk him. He does not give a fuck. He does not care. So that exchange would be interesting to see. But when we're talking about his contributions to the Lakers, this is something that has been well-deserved for a while. I guess it was just for them about having all the right things aligning perfectly to make it happen. I guess it finally did for them. And now they're willing to go through it on February 22nd of next year. So, that is just major, major props to him. As we've all heard at this point, the NBA and how it's going to be broadcasted is going to look completely different next season. And honestly, when I saw some of these reports at first surrounding what things were going to potentially look like for Inside the NBA, as they are now going to be on ESPN while still being distributed by TNT with the production and everything. I didn't want to believe everything that they were saying, but at the same time, when I was reading through this stuff, I'm just like very, very confused about it, and I don't know what to think, because Inside the NBA, you have to think about it like this: they are a show that just thrives off of having immaculate energy and obviously good basketball analysis combined with those moments that you just aren't expecting. Those moments of comedic timing, those moments of, I guess, more serious nature. Like, just a combination of all of that. It's just a free-flowing TV show with 4, I guess, people, obviously 3 former players and Ernie Johnson as well, having this connection with basketball and kind of relaying what they know to the audience from the perspective of a fan, not even from the perspective of people who have played the game or who have reported on the game previously. Remember, Ernie Johnson was a reporter, I believe, before he ever got into doing Inside the NBA, all the way back in 1989. Think about that. So again, it was great to see that the show stuck around, but there were obviously going to be questions surrounding how they at ESPN would handle this golden nugget of a basketball TV program. Literally, for years, it's been the pinnacle of basketball shows. No wonder, I think, even while they were still running on TNT, I think they were inducted into the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame. So that just goes to show you how great they have been for so long. And it's because of sticking to that just unexpected energy and combining it with great basketball intel. I think also, I was watching one of the documentaries on it. One of the, I guess, original producers of the show actually was a former ESPN employee that took that talent over to TNT, produced its show, and made it into what it is at this point. You'd think then, having that connection in mind, that they would try to just keep the show as it is and not try to mess around with it. And honestly, as far as those things go, those specific things haven't been hashed out yet. And we'll honestly have to wait until those episodes actually come on to see whether or not ESPN is actually just keeping their hands out of this completely, or if they've altered some of the ways that they, as a unit, cover the sport. We don't know those parts yet. But what we do at least have an idea of right now is that their window is going to be much shorter than it ever has been. Like, they have done halftime, obviously. They've done pregame, and they've done postgame for hours on end, having these long work nights, providing all of this elite basketball coverage, some of the best in the world, and I guess the best in the country by and large, right? So why exactly are you trying to shorten it? As this quote says here, according to Sports Media Watch, Inside the NBA is currently scheduled in a 30-minute time slot following ESPN's first doubleheader of the season. The show, which is being licensed from Turner, will air from approximately 12:05 to 12:35 a.m. and lead into SportsCenter. Now, the, I guess, specific SportsCenter that this is going to lead into is up for question because it has alternated when it comes to NBA coverage. Sometimes you will have the traditional SportsCenter in Bristol come on at that time, and other times you'll have the SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt come on. And that is interesting as well, because I can understand then why you would want to keep Scott Van Pelt's placement at around the same time. Like, there has been something about having an NBA or even NFL game one where it tends to happen a lot more, especially when we talk about Monday Night Football and things of that nature. There's something about having a game come on, watching some of the craziest things happen on the field or on the court go down, and then be able to sit back and watch some Scott Van Pelt in the early morning of a given day. Like, it is certainly a staple of their sports coverage. They know that, and so they're not willing to touch it. I get that. But does that really have to make Inside the NBA suffer by getting less airtime? Because I feel like with the way it's set up, there are a number of ways you could work around that, and your best bet is to give them just a 30-minute window. Not to mention, with the way that, think about this, as many complaints came out about the, I guess, the All-Star game itself, because they had it in tournament style. And there's a reason why they're not going back to it again. But let's just put it like this. There were multiple videos talking about how there were more, I guess, commercials. And there was much more airtime for these commercials compared to actual basketball play. And that is where I think this is going to hurt a little bit. Especially if this is going to be airing as a live show. I would imagine that it's going to be. I don't think that would be altered. So you're essentially going to have them on the air for all this time. But they're not even really going to be able to get into the meat of the basketball action in just a 30-minute time slot. I don't really see how that would work, because the way ESPN is now, especially with all these media rights in place, where you're going to be showing advertisements for different products and different brands repeatedly. And so what exactly are you trying to, like, create here? What exactly is your split going from basketball coverage to commercial break, basketball coverage to commercial break, basketball coverage to commercial break? Would it be like, I guess, First Take does it, for instance? Let's just go ahead and just look at that a little bit, because you'll have a segment that runs for probably the first 25 or so minutes, commercial break. Another segment that runs for 10 minutes or so, commercial break. A quick segment that lasts about a few, like, minutes or so, maybe a couple, commercial break, leading into the second hour. You have another segment that lasts for a good 15 minutes, commercial break. You have another segment that lasts for at least 10, commercial break. You have another segment that lasts for at least 5, commercial break. 2-minute segment, commercial break. And then a small segment heading into the out. Heading into, I guess, the Sports Center a few times this summer. Heading into the Pat McAfee show a few times this summer. Heading into other programming a few times this summer. And they needed an hour slot, a 2-hour slot in total to make that work. How would that even make sense with you condensing that into 30 minutes? For them as a group to do what they do best. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Now again, as some of these articles are stating, they are or very much have the potential to be placeholders. They haven't necessarily come out and said that that is the time in which Inside the NBA is going to air on here. But I don't know. If it does stick, if it does end up being the case, it's just like, I would find that a little weird personally, because it's like, damn, like, they all have to be able to contribute in some way, and then even with that happening, you still have to worry about airing all of the commercials that you're likely going to have at those specific time slots. And that's just going to create for a clash, especially in, certain cases where it's going to be like, damn, like, is it even going to be bearable to watch live if that is your game plan? I don't know about that. Yeah, as this quote states right here, the 30-minute window may well be a placeholder rather than an expectation, but those placeholder windows last season were generally a full hour. So again, I don't know about that, man. It's like that just strikes me like as a little just off. I don't know what to say about it. But I think what is even more telling about this is exactly how they are game planning this throughout the season. Because the way in which they word this might be a little weird, but it blows my mind. Because as another quote says here, from Sports Media Watch, this states, after the opening week of the season, TNT's NBA studio show is not guaranteed to take place again until Christmas Day. Per the announcement of ESPN's licensing agreement last year, the TNT studio show is set to air during the NBA Finals on ABC Conference Finals, NBA Playoffs, all ABC games after January 1st, Christmas Day, opening week, the final week of the season, and other marquee live events. So hold up. So you're telling me that you're not going to guarantee a legitimate powerhouse of a program. You're not going to ensure that they are on at least most days of the week. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Because also with some of their statements as well that I read throughout an article, they mentioned in a way that they were prioritizing Inside the NBA over other shows like NBA Countdown. Now, obviously, NBA Today is going to have a daytime slot, so I don't think that they would be affected. Maybe the group in some cases might show up there as well. There are a number of things that they could do creatively. But you've literally alluded to Inside the NBA having the priority over a show like that. So why then is your game plan to sort of phase out inside the NBA in favor of NBA Countdown. Or at least give them the leverage here. That is just completely backwards to me. Like, they should be able to air consistently. I don't see why they wouldn't do this. Like, do you really think that people would much rather spend their time watching Kendrick Perkins talk basketball and not even really do that all that well, rather bark instead and talk about food in a different segment, or just come up with some of the most asinine shit? You'd rather have Kendrick Perkins hold the mantle here than those four? Who the fuck would want to do that? Genuinely, who in their right mind would prefer watching Kendrick Perkins talk basketball over that group from inside the NBA? Are we being fucking serious? Like, that should be something that is guaranteed. And again, maybe I am kind of being a little bit too harsh about it. This is also something that could be, idea rather than a full-on expectation. Because, I mean, some of the other stuff that would happen in between now and then would call for a show. I mean, the NBA Cup would be a marquee live event per se, so they could probably have a few shows during then. I guess if they're notified about potential, moves happening, about potential milestones taking place, a show might be filled in there. But you don't bring in the cavalry to sit them down on the fucking bench like this. That is the greatest analogy I have for this shit. They should be guaranteed a good number of broadcasting opportunities if they so choose, because again, their schedules all collectively have to align with this as well. That is one aspect that could play a factor in all of this. Like, I totally get it from that perspective. But I'm saying, you brought them over. You essentially saved them from, being moved away from as a program. You saved them from, not even termination, but just extinction as a program. And you think you can now just hold that against them to try to do whatever it is you want with them? No. They are still all collectively great at what they do. So you can't go on knowing that these are the fucking starters for this shit. You can't have that kind of system in place where they aren't guaranteed to operate how they would want to do so. But then you're gonna give that leverage over to NBA Countdown? What the fuck kind of sense does that make? Real stuff. What kind of sense does that make, man? There is just no way, bro. It is just unfathomable to me. There is absolutely no shot. Like, you can't bring in the starters to cast them over to the wayside in favor of a completely different and inferior, in this case, unit. The only, NBA-centric program that should have that kind of priority in the late night slot and in the overall primetime slot over inside the NBA would be SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt. That is the only one that should have that kind of leverage in a situation like this. And the NBA would also do the liberty of releasing a watch guide and an overall schedule of how these things are going to be going down. Now, I was honestly going to save it. It makes way too much sense to just go through this right now. Because honestly, when you look at the watch guide first, there is honestly no reason why Inside the NBA shouldn't be on for at least Monday through Friday. Or at least on all of the days when ESPN or ABC properties are hosting a game. So at least 4 to 5 days a week. Because on Sundays, games are going to be on ABC, NBC, and Peacock. Mondays, Peacock will have it. Tuesday, NBC and Peacock will split. Wednesday will still be run by ESPN. Thursday will be run by Prime. And that is an interesting component about this, too. You think you're really going to compete with the NFL during the regular season for the Thursday night slot? We'll see about that. Fridays, you have Prime and ESPN splitting those games. And on Saturdays, you have Prime and ABC splitting those games. So again, realistically speaking, you could have them on Monday to Friday be on. Honestly. Maybe not even for a full hour slot. But you could just point that out to give them at least 40 minutes on a daily basis during that time span to talk about basketball. Or at least even, how about, let's talk about this. Yeah, Monday. You could give NBA Countdown 30 minutes, and you could give Inside the NBA 30 minutes. Tuesday, same thing. Wednesday, give them the full hour. Thursday, split. Friday, give them the full hour. And Saturday, give it to NBA Countdown. Sunday, also give it to NBA Countdown. Fine. What is truly stopping you from operating in that way? Or again, if we're going to go by every single day that an ESPN property has it, you could also have them get an hour slot after a game. Prior to Scott Van Pelt handling it. You could also, to solve the issue, have NBA Countdown do the pregame and have Inside the NBA do halftime. What has been one of the most pressing complaints from NBA fans about the ESPN coverage of the NBA over the past few seasons, the fucking halftime show. So how about on every single one of those days, the Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, if you are that unwilling to give them an hour slot and you're still hell-bent on giving Inside the NBA 30 minutes to do their damage in a slot later on in the night, fine. Give them halftime. Give them halftime. Let them talk basketball during that time span. Because they're actually, even in their own creative way, they're still going to get across a better message and give the viewer a better understanding of the fucking game unfolding before their very eyes than Kendrick Perkins and Stephen A. Smith screaming at each other the whole time are going to be able to do for you. Now again, in some cases, they do actually talk a little bit of basketball. But again, a lot of it is shrouded in them consistently getting off topic and talking about other shit that isn't even relevant to the fucking game. Then you have Bob Myers even having to check Stephen A. Smith about it, because that's how bad it got. And I guess you could say that Leah Andrews got better with it over time, but even then, there are situations where it is just too much for her to handle. Nobody wants to be dealing with that. If those two can't handle it and they're working on the show themselves, can you imagine how other fans of the game watching it on television have been feeling about that for years now? So you could do everyone a favor by solving that problem by having Inside the NBA handle halftime. Why the fuck would you want NBA Countdown to handle halftime with all the fucking shit that people have talked about that? Like, some of the... You're gonna... No matter... Honestly, and I guess this is kind of... I guess... pro of this entire development on both sides. No matter where you slot inside the NBA in at, you're going to get some very great moments from the show. They've proven that more often than not. Even if they are limited in what they can do, they will still produce a ton of moments for you. But it's really just about wanting to see as much of it as you can. So trying to put them in a box creatively or through, I guess, broadcasting as well when it comes to sorting out these different time slots and things like that. Trying to do that is not going to help you or them make the most out of this. Like, you can still have NBA Countdown if you're really that desperate to hold on to it. Fine. But there is still a great amount of room for Inside the NBA to have a handle on more than just your standard 30-minute time slot. That, again, could be even shorter because of how these advertisements work and how long they can be sometimes when you add it all up. They deserve a lot better than that. And then when you look over at their key dates, because they also had a post about this, like, obviously, ESPN is going to be a part of the tip-off, so they're going to be on for those nights guaranteed. But then again, yeah, you have all of these other ones coming through. Like I said, they could be able to handle the NBA Cup, I would believe. They're obviously going to do Christmas. They're going to do Rivals Week in some capacity. And then they're going to do the All-Star Game. And obviously the playoffs as well, everything that comes with that. There would still be room in between all of that for them to have a great chance of putting together a show for the audience. So to not even grant them that at all is just insane to me. It is insane. And again, they're still going to be able, at least we don't know any particular changes right now. I guess it would be hard to assume anything, but at the very least, there's a good chance that they could still operate in the same way that they do when it comes to actually doing the show. But that's just, like, to just already be trying to limit them and limit their creative freedom, limit their potential to reach a great number of the audience before they even get started is just not even like it's a man. It's like it's just something that should be cautioned, I would say. Like, I can't say that it is objectively bad because, if anything, I don't know anything myself. I can't speak like I do. But, like, damn, it just sucks, bro. The Heat would trade Haywood Highsmith and a 2032 second-round pick to the Nets in exchange for a protected 2026 second-round pick. Now, honestly, I mean, it's kind of a weird way, honestly, to view the trade on both sides. For the Nets, it does give them a veteran presence that can develop into a pretty solid 3-and-D guy. You know, he also saw a bit of a jump last year because of all of the turmoil that the Heat were going through at that point. Nevertheless, you're definitely going to get solid defense from him, and you're also getting a career 37.4% shooter when he's on the court and healthy. I do believe that his role would stay about the same. He's not going to be a starter over a guy like Michael Porter Jr., but he is going to come off the bench and provide those solid minutes for the team. But, you know, hey, you got to credit the Nets for being able to get another pick out of it as well, even if it is much further down the line. And, you know, he is a really solid player for his role. That could definitely hurt some of the younger guys. And that's where I'd say this trade is kind of a downside for them in terms of what they get back. Because you already, if you're the Nets, you have a loaded wing room of a few veteran guys and a lot of younger players that need to be developed, that need the reps to get better eventually in the NBA. And adding Haywood Highsmith to the mix just makes it even more crowded than it already is. Now, I guess Highsmith is kind of used to this. After all, he's coming from a team that had, and kind of still does, have the very same issue. But I guess maybe the Nets are allowing it because, in all honesty, they're just trying to get much better. They don't have a true direction in terms of trying to contend. They're not trying to get that far for a while, but they are trying to build a little bit of a foundation here. And from that standpoint, I think they would live with a move like this. Now, it does slightly help the Heat to have Highsmith off the team because now you give room to some of your younger forwards, like a Keyshawn Johnson, like a Jaime Jaquez Jr., like a Nikola Jovic. And obviously, Andrew Wiggins is already there. So from that standpoint, I guess this is a fine move for them. And, you know, getting back a 2026 second rounder is okay at best. But here's where I say the Heat screwed up. I mean, I guess Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love were just far out of this thing, even with them being forwards. But let's just put it like this. If the Heat were this willing to move on from their forward talent when we were at the height of free agency, they probably could have fucked around and gotten Kevin Durant. And you mean to tell me that now that you've moved on from a few forwards on this team, like, the timing is just completely off. Because all you have gotten back since then is Norman Powell and a few picks. in later years. What? The Heat are just mired in mediocrity. You gotta choose whether or not you're trying to contend or whether or not you're trying to lose ball games. Okay? If they are seriously trying to contend, they would have just dealt with getting closer to the penalty and gotten fucking Kevin Durant by moving on from a number of these different forwards that, for whatever reason, they are still holding on to at this point. Now you want to decide when he's off the board and when there aren't even a lot of moves going on for superstars at this point. Now you want to move on from your forwards. That doesn't make a lick of fucking sense. It does not. They severely dropped the ball in that aspect. I mean, come on, man. Like, this is an every year thing. You had a chance this summer to get yourself a star. You can't say that they didn't. But again, they weren't willing to play ball. So this is the result of that. Now, I guess hopefully some of this younger talent kind of comes along. If anything, it is going to be interesting to see whether or not they give Pelle Lawson a chance to develop into something. But even still, you have a lot of other wings who are ahead of him in the depth chart. And, like, this has got to be the year that you make a decision on some of these guys. Because, Jaime Jaquez Jr. has certainly regressed. Nikola Jovic has been inconsistent. It is really time for you to make a choice. Shit, I'd even say before the trade deadline, you need to truly see whether or not these are guys that you can depend on. I would lean toward Jaime Jaquez Jr. with him having the better overall start to his career. But you gotta showcase that in the first half of this season. Otherwise, they are much better off just moving on from them both and getting some better talent in that locker room to propel them into a much better position than they were at. Now, yeah, it didn't help that Jimmy Butler was at the center of a team that was just truly struggling, largely because of his absence. But for you to go 37-45 and lose unconvincingly to the Cavs in the first round in a full sweep is not the result you want to repeat as a team. You just don't. You should be trying to do everything in your power to avoid something like that happening again. And again, Norman Powell is a great piece. Don't get me wrong. Like I mentioned, how good he could truly be for this team. But you could have shot for way, way higher mark than you did in this offseason. And it's on you. Luka Doncic was dealing with a right knee contusion. According to this article from NBC Sports, Doncic had an injury scare while playing for Slovenia in a tune-up game for Eurobasket when teammate Gregor Hrovat fell into Doncic's knee. End quote. Now, thankfully, it didn't end up being anything severe. They mentioned that he was able to come back to the sidelines and watch the game play out, and that he'll probably be okay for the most part. Still, you just don't want to hear of any true setback with Doncic right now, especially being able to get himself in peak shape for this upcoming season. Anytime you hear something potentially endangering that, you definitely want to look into it, investigate, But I guess they feel as though there isn't much there with it. He's going to be able to recover from it pretty swiftly and pretty effectively, and that's a good thing. They don't play when it comes to the Eurobasket over there. I was wondering if this was for that, and it ended up being the case. It's not a surprise, because you have a number of guys overseas who are stars in the league participating in this as well. It is a staple of FIBA basketball. So, they're certainly going to, in some cases, go a little harder. I mean, after all, this is for country. Typically, when it comes to, I guess, players in the U.S., they're probably going to take it easy in some case. But no. You're not going to convince a foreign superstar to not go all out when it comes to representing their country on this stage. It's just not going to happen. You just have to hope that they consistently remain in good health while being over there. But, even with it being an injury scare, that's not going to stop Luka Doncic for putting on for Slovenia in this thing. I mean, they literally mentioned that in the first half of this, we're talking about a tune-up game. We're talking about practice, all right? He put up 25, 5, and 5 in the first fucking half of the game. He's not fucking around. So there you go. Obviously, injuries are a part of the game, and it's going to happen sometimes when you're playing with that much effort. And from that perspective, that can be perceived as a good thing. Just hopefully, again, other situations like that are avoided, not just for Luka Doncic, but for everyone participating in Eurobasket. The Heat would also make another move, signing Dru Smith to a 3-year contract. Now, I'm not all too familiar with him, but from what I'm seeing, he is currently 28 years old, and he has been a player that has been developing in their organization for quite some time. I guess they feel as though he could be a very good 3-and-D player for him. Maybe that played a role into them being willing to move on from Haywood Highsmith. He's a little smaller than him, and he plays shooting guard predominantly. Yet, in the games that he has appeared in, he's been limited, to say the least. But he has shot 42.4% from the field in that time. So maybe with the right amount of opportunity, they feel as though he could actually become one of their more important players. And I guess from that standpoint, maybe they could be onto something. Maybe. I'm not all too sure about it, though. Because when you look at this, in all of these seasons, he's played in just 38 games. I'm looking at this as well, and it's an injury report on his basketball reference page stating that he's going to potentially miss opening night because in June he got a surgery to repair a left Achilles tendon that he tore earlier in the season. So I don't know about that. Availability is obviously going to be a question, especially for someone who is now going on 28 years old by the end of the year. You would not want it to be a situation where he is barely able to produce before his career can truly take off. You would certainly hate that. But it would appear if, all of this is going down, it would appear as though that could be the case. Because you just have to be a person that can be relied upon when it comes to being healthy. You have to be reliable in that aspect, and you have to be available. If you can't do that, first and foremost in the NBA, no matter how much talent you have, or no matter how much potential you showcase, you could be out of the league very quickly if that isn't handled to the standard of the team that you're on. So we'll see about it when it comes to Dru Smith, but as for right now, I don't really have much to say about this. You would wish him the best, though. Like, it's a grand opportunity, because I would have to believe with some of that, I guess, low availability, he may have honestly been a G League player or on a two-way contract during this time. And from that standpoint, well, it would be great that he's now getting an opportunity to show when he's got full time in the NBA. But again, before that even starts, you're dealing with this. It just doesn't really help him at all. Hopefully he can recover from this, though. That'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.